Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your appearance on this incredibly distinguished panel. I respect and thank you all for your service to our country abroad in many places that don't appear on top tourist destinations. I'll follow up on both points that Senator King made. Ambassador Edelman, I'll give you a yes or no question as well. Would it be a positive development for the Middle East for Iran to develop nuclear weapons in 8 to 13 years when the key provisions of the JCPOA expire, when its economy has grown stronger because sanctions are lifted, when its conventional military is stronger because the conventional arms embargo was lifted in 2020? That can also be a yes or no question.
No, would not be positive.
Thank you. On the point about Jerusalem being the capital of Israel, was it an irresponsible and rash decision of this Senate to vote in July 90-0 that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel? Anyone can take it.
Senator Cotton, I think it's just a recognition of fact. And I'm a frequent critic of the Trump administration, but the President was acting in conformance with the law that he was asked to implement. My one criticism would be, I think the step would have been more usefully made in the context of a broader plan or proposal as opposed to a one-off. But otherwise...
Thank you. I want to turn now to Syria, and I'll start with Ambassador Crocker, since I believe you're the only member of the panel who served in Damascus, although everybody obviously has been impacted by their service, and then we can get reactions after Ambassador Crocker's response. What are the best steps the United States could take at this point, not looking retroactively and assigning blame or credit for any action anyone took in 2011 to this point, to reduce Iranian influence inside of Syria? And I'd like your advice in terms of best practical steps. I don't think anyone believes the American people will support a large-scale conventional military deployment to Syria, but what are the best practical steps that we could take that could have the durable support of the American people to minimize Iranian influence inside of Syria?
Thank you, Senator, and thank you for your service. There are several things. The most critical thing, in my view, is pull together a policy. What we're seeing now with the Syrian Democratic Forces that were so closely allied with us in the campaign against ISIS, they don't know what we're going to do next. So they're in touch with everybody. I mean, they're talking to the Assad regime, they're talking to Tehran, they're talking to Hezbollah, because they know we haven't set a policy. They got to live there. So we're into a period now, I think, that's pretty dangerous, where all the actors are going to posture and take positions as though we're not there because we may not be. So that's one. Second, we need to be present diplomatically and politically. The Turks, the Iranians, and the Russians started this Astana process as a counterpoint to Geneva. We weren't even in the room. Now I guess we're there as an observer. We're the United States of America. You know, if we're part of a process, we don't stand on the sidelines and watch. So I would hope that we would get a grip on the political processes that are in play, Astana and Geneva, and use those as a forum to start serious thinking on the way ahead, which is going to be complicated and messy, but also to assert that the United States is there for a reason. These are our security interests, and we are going to be very much a part of that process. We are not going to leave it to our adversaries, such as Iran.
Gentlemen, any other response on that one?
Very quickly, Senator, we have a lot of assets in Syria, even though it doesn't look that way. We and the Turks between us hold about 1/3 of the country and have a lot of local allies, even though we're not coordinated with the Turks, but that's a question of diplomacy. The Israelis operate militarily throughout Syria in the air. That's another factor. We have a diplomatic entree with UN Resolution 2254, which means it's all of our business how Syria is organized, and we can leverage the possibility of reconstruction. as a means to try to force a wedge between the Russians, as Ambassador Jones was talking about, and the Syrians and the Iranians, because ultimately their interests are different. But we have to keep not just diplomacy, but military presence there, and that means working with Turkey, the Kurds in Iraq, and the Iraqi government, so that we can physically get in and out, because we need entree to that region.
Well, my time has expired, but thank you again for your appearances here. I know some of you have already failed at retirement. To the extent you ever fail again and want to come back into government service, I bet there are a bunch of senators on this committee and elsewhere in the building that would be happy to vote to confirm you to another position in the United States government.